Hello, fellow travelers, adventurers, and explorers. I just got back from a 5-day, 4-night backpacking trip in the Grand Canyon, and it was pretty incredible. Now, I've never been backpacking before, so this was my first trip, and luckily, I had a friend who was really amazing and very experienced with backpacking, so he helped me a lot. And as a first-time backpacker, I was definitely hesitant about the weight of the backpack and certain things that I should or shouldn't bring. So really today, I really wanted to go over some of the items that I brought that I felt really made a big difference for me, and also just some general information in case you are a first-time backpacker and you had some of the same questions. So one of the first items that I found quite useful is this day pack. So I just bought this at REI, and you know, it does have a little bit of weight to it, but it's not too bad. It was incredibly helpful because when you're camping and you want to do a day hike, it's nice to not have to bring all of your gear or to put things in your pockets or just carry things in your hands. So I really liked having this day pack, and yes, they do have some that are a little bit lighter, but the straps on those seemed kind of flimsy, so these straps actually are a little bit more hefty and sturdy, so this pack I felt was a really good investment and a good thing to bring. The next thing that came in particularly handy was a rain fly. This thing does not weigh very much, and it essentially just kind of bungees over the back part of your backpack, so your straps are still exposed, but like the entire pack is covered with this, and then it buckles around the top and the bottom and the sides for the rain fly to stay on. So this I did use a couple of times because it did rain, so this came in particularly handy for me. Next is the head bug net thing. And I wasn't gonna bring this because my friend who's done the Grand Canyon so many times was like, usually there's no bugs, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna bring this. And it worked out in my favor because when we got to Cottonwood, that campsite was so buggy, and I was so glad that I had brought a head net, and this thing's like super lightweight, so it was totally worth it. Next is a headlamp. Now, this headlamp that I have in particular, I'll put a link below actually to anything that I can, so it's down there if you want to check them out. But this light is super bright, which was great, but we didn't really do any night hikes, so the brightness was sort of irrelevant, and this particular headlamp does not have a red light, and you do want to use a red light when you're at the campsite or, you know, around. So this headlamp was just, in my opinion, a little bit too bright, and I do wish that I would have had like a multi-mode with a red light headlight. So lesson learned for me. But again, it wasn't too big of a struggle because my friend had a headlamp, so I just, you know, hung out with him. Another little nifty thing that I got was this microfiber towel. So it is really lightweight and it just clips onto the front of my pack. And I was sort of like, I don't know why I need to bring a towel. That seems kind of like a waste of weight, even though it's not really that heavy. But I did end up using this because it rained, and I used this in order to dry off the rain fly. So it did come in handy. And then also, like, we did cross a creek, but it was warm enough, so it didn't matter like getting wet or whatever, but you could potentially need to use a towel. So I would definitely recommend having one of these. Another item that I bought and I liked a lot is this little cup / mug. Now this is the only, I don't know what the right word is, not utensil, but like eating dish. It's the only dish that I brought for the entire trip. And so essentially it was my coffee mug as well as what I was making my breakfast, my oatmeal in. And it just expands just like that. And you can just use this little cozy thing, and it goes right here. So you don't have like the heat of the cup. So this thing's super, super handy and nifty, and it's so cool. And yeah, I was really happy about this buy. And like I said, it does have a little bit of weight to it, but it's not that bad, and it was definitely, in my opinion, worth it. The other eating utensil that I ended up buying is this titanium spork, and this was a really good investment because first of all, it has a long handle, which I don't remember how long it is, so I'll just, you know, make a note about that for you guys. But this is important so that way you can stir your dehydrated meals like quite easily. And at first I had some reservations about the spoon being bent like that because I was like, that's really weird. But actually didn't bother me at all, and I really like this, and I like that it came in this little pouch because I would just slip it right in there and then clip it on to my cup, and then these two things just hang on the outside of my pack. And so it really came in very handy. Moving on. So it probably goes without saying, but you want to have some hiking poles. And again, I'll put a link to this down below. But these poles were super handy and they're sturdy. I liked it. I have no like complaints about these poles. I would definitely recommend them. I did not use these on the descent, but the ascent I totally did. And I was so grateful I had poles because it does just kind of, I guess, help alleviate some of the weight from the pack that you're carrying. So poles, definitely you want to consider buying. So something that my friend recommended, and I was kind of like, do I really need to bring that? But I am so glad that I did, and it was sandals. And so I just used my little Hero Clip carabiner and stuck it right on the outside of my pack like that. But, you know, like I said, I had reservations because I was really worried as a first-time packer how much weight I could actually carry. And I was worried, I just didn't want to like keep adding weight because you can easily get carried away by saying, well, this doesn't weigh that much, this doesn't weigh that much, but do that 20 times and you have a lot of things. So I was nervous about it. However, I would say for sure bring sandals. And these sandals in particular, they happen to be waterproof. So I wore these when we like walked through the creek, but it was really nice having these back at the campsite so that way I could give my feet a break from my shoes, even though I like my shoes and usually my shoes are comfortable. But yeah, having sandals really did make a difference. So I highly recommend bringing sandals for your pack. And I don't have them with me. However, I also had some crampons that I was borrowing and I just Velcroed those right onto this. So those also hung on the outside of my pack. Okay, so another thing that my friend recommended, and again, I was like, do I really need to bring that? But I was like, okay, fine. He's an experienced backpacker, so I guess I'll do it. But it is a blanket. And I am so glad that I brought this because the couple of nights that I slept without it, I did get cold. And the sleeping bag that I had was rated for 30. I had brought long johns. I even was wearing sweats. I had a beanie, but this thing really did make a difference because whenever I slept with this, I was either warm or hot. And so, I mean, I'd rather be that than cold all night. So bringing a blanket is really useful. And this blanket in particular, I guess is just like, I think it's called like personal size. I'm not sure. It's not as big as like a twin, but it's like it fits your body, if that makes sense. But okay, so another thing that I brought that I felt was particularly useful is this compression bag. So this is how I kept all of my clothes, and I have a pillowcase in here as well. So the original plan was to just slip the pillowcase on this and use this thing as my pillow. However, it's kind of like firm, so I don't know. I mean, I guess if you like really firm pillows, it's kind of comfy. But anyways, I ended up using my jacket as my pillow, but the pillowcase was a game-changing item to bring along. And like I said, this compression bag I also really enjoyed because I'm not someone who just likes my stuff rolling around inside the bag. It's hard to find things. You can lose your socks and stuff quite easily. So compression bag, game changer in my opinion. And yeah, it does weigh a little bit. I mean, obviously on its own, it's not going to weigh that much, but like you're going to bring the clothes you're going to bring anyways. So yeah, compression bag made it a lot more organized in my opinion. Now, I don't want to spend too much time talking about food, but I did just want to say that I used the Mountain House meals and they're really good. So I was scared that like it would just not be very good. I don't know what I was expecting, but honestly, really, really delicious. And I only did 3 flavors. So I had 4 of these meals, and then I did actually did like the Annie's or Anne's, what is that? The macaroni and cheese. I will say that bringing cups was kind of cumbersome. So those macaroni and cheese cups was a little bit cumbersome because whatever you pack in, you have to pack out. So it's like you don't ever get rid of your trash. So you always are carrying something. So I don't know if I would do that again. But anyways, I just wanted to say that these meals are actually really good. And I tried the lasagna, which is really, really good. And also the chicken fettuccine Alfredo. I don't know why I'm struggling saying that. But that was really good. And then the other one was called, I think it was called like chicken fajita bowl. And that was also really good in terms of flavor. And I did just follow the instructions exactly the way that they tell you. I didn't like add less or more. And some of the reviews are saying that. So I don't know why but just follow the instructions and the meals are actually really, really, really good. Another small little thing that I enjoyed was bringing instant coffee. So I brought these Starbucks packets, and then I got this little hazelnut flavor sugar-free enhancer, and this really just kind of made the mornings feel a little bit more, I don't know, luxurious, I guess. But it was really nice having coffee, like flavored coffee in the morning, and so this was, to me, worth bringing. So one of the last things that I was concerned about as a first-time hiker was, how am I going to charge all of my devices? So I'm using my phone for pictures and video, and obviously I have an iWatch and I use a gimbal. So all three of those devices need to be charged. And I did a lot of research trying to figure out like if I should use a solar charger or, you know, what was the best way to do this. And ultimately I decided on purchasing the Charmast. And this thing is freaking amazing. So I had no trouble charging my devices at all. Granted, they did all hold their battery life pretty well. I was charging my watch every single night, like I said, 4 nights. And then I think I only charged my phone 2 nights. And then the gimbal, I only had to charge 1 night. And this thing had no problem with that. I think it actually only lost like one power bar. So I don't know if you can see that or not, but it really did hold its charge. And I mean, it's even been like, I think a week since I got back. So this thing hasn't even been charged, and it's still holding a charge. So this thing is pretty incredible. I like the bag because I was able to like put the cords in there with it and then easily pack it into my pack. So now I'm going to show you how I packed my pack as a first-time packer, and I really didn't have any issues with the way that I packed it. So it was amazing. Now, granted, I wasn't carrying everything, so I wasn't carrying a tent. I'm gonna show you with kind of like a fake tent because the space is there. But I wasn't carrying the tent, and I wasn't carrying the stove or the pot for the stove. So yeah, I technically had a little bit more space. And then also I didn't end up carrying my sleeping bag. My friend was so nice and carried that for me too. And but if I were going to do that, I probably would have clipped it to the bottom of my bag, which I will show you in just a second. So the first thing that I put in was my water bladder, which goes into the little pocket, and then I threaded the hose through. The second thing is the blanket, which I shove all the way down to the bottom. And since I'm not bringing a tent, I'm showing you with a sleeping pad that there is room. And then, of course, a sleeping pad because I did actually need to use that. Next are my clothing, which are inside of the compression bag. So I just sort of placed those into the middle of the bag. And then I used food that was going to be free floating and just shoved that into the extra space. And then the same goes for my toiletry bag. And then the leftover space I filled up with all of the food. Next, I have the day pack, the rainfly, and the bug net, and that just fit in one of the top pockets. And then items that I thought that I might need to get quickly, I put into the top pocket, and those are my beanie, my hat, and my gloves. And I just shoved those in there however they would fit. And then my gimbal, as well as my charger and all of my electronic cords, and then my sunglasses. Then using a carabiner, I had my cup and my spork clipped to the front of my bag, as well as the microfiber towel, which was clipped onto the other side. And then I shoved a bunch of snacks into upside pocket and my book into the front pocket. And then using the hero clip, I attached my sandals as well as the crampons to the front. In the side pocket, I added my headlamp as well as a pocket knife. And then in the other side pocket, I added the lotion and chapstick as well as a hand sanitizer. And of course, extra baggies for trash. And then my hiking poles, which I took out of the bag, but I just want to show you how I threaded them. And then the bottom of the pack is where I would have put the sleeping bag. So the weight of my bag after packing all of those things is only 22 pounds and a half. And yeah, the water does weigh a bit more, and then I still would have to add in all of the food, and I obviously don't have all the food here because this is after the trip and not before the trip. However, the pack came to, I believe it was 30 pounds total. So my pack was still pretty light. And so I think that, you know, if you're a petite female, you're probably aiming for about a 35-pound pack if you're going for about a week or a little less than a week, which was the case for me. Now, I can say that 30 pounds was not that bad. I was scared about it. I thought maybe I wouldn't be able to carry it. Like, Obviously, the Grand Canyon seems very intimidating and very steep, but it was no trouble at all. Like, I had zero issues. Yes, it does help if you can, stay active and do some training hikes before you go and just make sure that you're physically fit and able. But yeah, the weight was actually really, really easy to carry. And I will say that you do want to make sure that you have a pack that fits pretty well and is fitted to your body, because that really can be a game changer. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the pack here because I'm going to do a full review video on the pack itself and go over all the details of my pack specifically. But I did just want to say that if you are backpacking for about a week, you probably want about a 70-liter backpack. I mean, it will depend, like, if you're the one who's carrying things or you're going with someone else and they're carrying like the tent and all the bags, or I don't know, so you can kind of consider your own circumstances. But I would say that if you're doing a week, you would at least want a 70-liter pack. And if you're doing more than that, a 70-liter or maybe up to like an 85-liter pack. However, of course, like the bigger your pack, the more weight you need to be able to carry. And so you just need to make sure that you are actually capable of doing that. So if you want more details about my trip in specific, you can check out the blog, because I'm going to go into a lot more details there and go over what I specifically packed and the food that I brought and all of that stuff. If you have any questions for me, please leave it in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer those, and I will talk to you later.